On this episode of the Girl Talk podcast,
it's so much better for us to let things go. A lot of times, I'll build up something in my head that I've created conversations that never took place.
right? Yeah. I do that too.
Take the ball and run with it.
Yeah.
Whereas if I can just let that go, that doesn't really matter. Oh, I'm going to be so much happier. And then I can start this relationship in a much better place.
You're listening to the Girl Talk podcast. My name is Carol.
I'm Kelly.
I'm Trisha.
And today we're going to talk about an epidemic. Yes, I said an epidemic. Loneliness. If you haven't experienced a season of loneliness, you're probably one of the only people I know who hasn't. I think we all go through seasons of loneliness in our lives, but it seems to be at epidemic proportions, especially right now. Yeah. KB, you got some statistics about it.
Yeah, so actually in May of this year, May of 2023, last year, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services released information on a study that they had done, and the study was actually called The Epidemic of Loneliness. And it was all about how us as a nation have, that we're lonely, that we are experiencing loneliness like we have never experienced before. The Surgeon General, whose name is Vivek Murthy, went on this cross-country tour of the United States and just talked to people. It was a listening tour, so he wanted to find out from folks what's going on, where are you at, what are you thinking, and this was all pre-2020. So pre-shutdown, pre-pandemic, pre-COVID, pre all of that loneliness and isolation. This was before that. Okay. And he said that everywhere he went, every corner of America, every socioeconomic group he talked to, every racial group he talked to, didn't matter whether you were living in an urban community or a rural community or the South or the North or the East or the West, everybody said to him, I am lonely. And specifically, a couple of quotes, he said, people told me that they feel isolated, invisible, and insignificant. That if people said, quote, things like, I have to shoulder all of life's burdens all by myself. And if I disappeared tomorrow, no one would even notice. And he said he heard that over and over and over again, so much so that they actually did this study and called it the epidemic of loneliness. They also said that it is contributing significantly to our health. That this epidemic, the scientific piece of that, is that social isolation, social disconnectedness is worse for us physically than smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
What?
15 cigarettes a day.
Oh my goodness.
It's also worse for us physically than obesity. And it was like, for years we've heard, don't smoke, that'll kill you. Don't be overweight, that'll kill you sooner or later. But nobody has ever said, don't disconnect yourself from other people socially because that'll kill you. It is more likely, isolation is more likely to kill you than smoking 15 cigarettes a day and worse than obesity.
I'm wondering if that is because of the rise of social media, where people are pseudo-connected, but not really connected. Everybody's putting their best foot forward, but nobody really knows anybody to a certain depth.
Yeah. I think that's part of it for sure. I think it's also just in general, these phones, we text people now instead of talking to them on the phone.
Yeah, I will text my kid in my own house. I'm ashamed to say that.
Right.
Sometimes
we live very transient lives.
Yeah.
And so the communities we grew up in are not the communities that we live in now.
Yeah.
Our community that we had 10 years ago looks different than the community we have today. And so we're not as invested deeply in people's lives as we used to be.
It's interesting you should mention that because my parents' generation, they kept the same friend group for 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever seen, obviously I didn't have a front row seat for anybody else's journey other than theirs, but I just like have been amazed at the friendships that they have had over 60 years. They all raised kids together. Yep. They all went through the things together. They all sent kids off to college. I mean, it was all of the milestones they kind of went through together, and that kind of community is just not. Yep. And I wonder what's at the heart of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it too is our habits. Like, I know for me, I have a lot of my friend groups have rotated around one of two things, either around where I work or where I go to church. Yeah. And those are kind of my two friend groups. Well, we now have, church hopping that we have a tendency to do. The church I went to 15 years ago is different than the church I go to now. Yeah. The church I was going to 15 years before that was different than the church I'm going to now. And the same thing with jobs. The job I worked at a different place 6 years ago. I didn't even know you girls. Right. And now I would consider you some of my best friends in the world.
Absolutely.
And it's because we hop from one thing to the next as opposed to really digging in. Yeah. And we commit to a church through thick and thin. Our parents committed to churches through thick and thin. Yeah.
To communities, really.
To jobs, to do life together with people. And we have different habits, and it's to our detriment, really. Yeah.
I think part of the mindset is do more, connect less. And I think that plays out in our lives, our social lives, our relationships, everything. Do more, get more done. Yeah. But you're not going to connect with people the same way.
You shared something with me from your trip to Africa about one of the things that you heard. Tell that story again.
Yeah, I was really amazed because we went to Africa with Compassion International, and we went to some of the poorest areas that I have ever seen, some of the poorest areas, I'm sure, in the world. And we were going through dirt paths into these little communities where different mud huts were all connected together. And there was maybe like a fire pit where they all kind of came together and cooked their food. And as we were there, seeing the way they live, trying to encourage them and love on them, there was something I noticed that they had that we didn't, and it was a community. It was a sense of community. And as I started to kind of look around and talk to people, this family would go over to this family's house if they didn't have enough food. This child would be helped by this family if they were sick. These kids would go walk through together to do their the chores that they had. They were always together, always looking out for each other. And they have a sense of community that we have completely lost because of our technology, because of the way our lifestyles are. And as a result of that, I was talking with one of our guides. They have little to no suicide. If someone is hurting, the elders in the community will go to their house. The other people that live nearby will come and talk to them. They don't have crime the same way that we have. They share everything, and they don't have domestic violence. If there is some kind of a relationship issue where someone is being abused, the people in the community will come and they will address that issue. Wow. So what we're seeing is so many of the things that our community, our environment and our culture struggles with, they don't struggle with.
Wow. Yeah, that's just beautiful. I mean, that to me is my dream. To live in community like that.
You shared that on your hot seat.
I did. Yeah, I would love to
Kelly
live.
Brandon commune.
Right, my little commune.
Because you love that feeling of
connection.
I got you.
Yes.
We're going to see each other tonight at dinner, and or, let me help you. You help me.
Yep, and that doing life together, peace. I know that I myself struggle with a lot of loneliness. A lot of that's because I live with two boys and two introverted boys who are perfectly happy with not having conversations with people. They are happy with that. And I am not that person at all. I really like people. I want activity. I'm an extrovert. I want to have conversations with people. And so I really struggle with that sense of loneliness, even though I oftentimes feel like I have community around me. Sometimes, anyway, I just struggle with that. And so the idea of living around a fire pit living with life
Sharing
with other people,
everything.
sharing everything.
Yeah.
Is just beautiful to me.
It's absolutely beautiful. Some of the loneliest time I ever spent was in New York City.
Oh, I bet.
Lived there, crowded so much you had to like turn your shoulders to pass people, and never felt lonelier. Because you can be surrounded by people with no connection and just be so incredibly lonely. And I have 2 boys and a husband, and 2 of the 3 are introverted, and the third is always out doing something. So I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I've had times when I have cried to one of my sons, please talk to me about what's going on, literally tears down my face. And he's like, I do talk to you. Like, when? He said, in the car. I said, you said you liked English or whatever. It was like no substantive conversation.
Right. Yep.
He felt like he was sharing with me, but I felt no satisfaction from that interaction. And I think that is kind of some of where we are raising kids, and they're starting to launch, but yet we don't feel the connections that we used to.
Yeah. And I think it's important that you mentioned, too, that you were in the middle of a ton of people and felt the loneliest you've ever felt. I think that has made its way into church as well, because you can sit on a pew that is crowded with no space for anybody else and feel so lonely. And a lot of times we do that to ourselves. We tend to think that our life and struggle, the things that we're going through, and we see somebody else and we think they have the perfect life and the perfect home and the perfect kids and the perfect outfit and the perfect house and all the perfect things, when that's not really reality.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I mean, we all have fallen for the lie that Instagram reels are how people really live. It's not. And but we believe that lie, and we let it isolate us even more. Because, we've, the 3 of us, I mean, since we've been doing Girl Talk and Girl Talk events, and we get out and we hear from you, we get your emails, and you tell us that very thing, like, I am lonely. Like, I have no free. One of the reasons I think this podcast has seen success is because people don't have conversations like this with their girlfriends. We've even heard that from people. And so I want to get at the heart of what, we've talked about all loneliness in these communities, but I want to talk about what got us there and how we get out. Because I think it's not enough for us to just say there is a problem. We all know there's a problem, but how do we turn the corner and how do we start taking steps towards people?
I have an idea. What I think, at least for myself, is when I feel the most lonely, it's because my relationships have been superficial, that I haven't shared or I haven't inquired of someone else to share what's really going on.
Right.
And you could talk about the weather all day long and still feel lonely and like you haven't made that connection with someone. So for me, it's identifying the superficial pieces. And then if this is a relationship that I want to foster, to dig deeper.
I had that very thing happen at church a couple of weeks ago. I saw a woman. I went over to her and was congratulating her on something big that had happened in her life. And I looked at her and I said, "How are you?" And she goes, "I'm good." And I said, "Oh, nope. We're going to go deeper with that. What is it? What's going on? How are you really?" And she said, "I'm lonely. I have put up walls. I have intentionally put up walls and didn't realize I was doing that. Really, I put up walls, and now I have lost my community because I don't." Because I put up those walls. And so I said, well, I will be your community. And I think part of it starts with that. Part of it starts with us going, all right, your answer of good, your answer of fine is not enough. And I'm going to go deeper with you to say, hey, how are you really?
Because here's something that strikes me when you tell that story. I think the goal is not to get hurt.
Sure.
And that leads us to isolate. Like, can I just look you in the eye right now and say, if you are breathing air, you're going to hurt somebody and not mean to, and somebody's going to hurt you and not mean to. Relationships are messy. And I'm not negating that, but I'm saying that the protective walls that we put around ourselves to keep us safe are the very walls that are keeping us lonely.
Right.
Because relationship is I mean, talk to these other 2 girls. Knowing me is a mess. It's a hot mess. And there are days that are really good, and then there are days that are really, really bad. And they're willing to.
But you're still loved,
right? And they're and I mean, let's just go a little bit deeper. We've had disagreements in this room.
Mm-hmm.
We've had times of great tension in this room when we have talked about things and feelings got hurt and we've had to repent to each other. I mean, that's all part of it. But here's the thing. On the other side of it, there's a deeper relationship and connection.
Yeah.
Because I think we as women say, I don't want to get hurt. I was hurt one time by the church. I was hurt one time and I'm just never going to go back to the church. All those things. Okay, I get that. And I don't want you to get hurt either. But relationships are messy. And when you build walls to protect, you're also building walls that isolate.
Yes.
And you're not opening up yourself for God to use you in anybody else's life because they can't get in.
Yeah.
I just get so frustrated, mainly with myself, because when I say I'm lonely, what have I done to prevent others from getting in?
Yeah.
And I think what you said's really important, that you are going to get hurt and you are going to hurt somebody else. And you may not do that on purpose.
Yeah.
You may not hurt somebody on purpose, but it is going to happen.
Right.
That is the downside of relationships. But the upside is so good. It's so worth all the downsides that you might have.
I've got to throw this in there.
Okay. Say
because I think this happens in the Christian community, especially, or in Christian communities I've been a part of. So when conflict arises, we don't deal with it. We leave. Yeah. And so here's what happens. You get your feelings hurt over something, so you decide you're going to leave. You take that hurt to the next place, the next church you're at, and you operate from that hurt.
Yep.
So nothing gets solved. Nothing gets worked through. Jesus never called us to not deal with conflict.
Yeah. And here's the thing about conflict, too. There's two sides to every conflict,
Absolutely.
at least two sides. And usually it's a misunderstanding at the heart of it anyway, that there's, especially if you continue to suppress it and you don't deal with it, if you never have the conversation, then it gets even more manipulated in your mind.
Gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yes.
And that's not something, I mean, if you have kids, that's not something you want to model for your kids. Because what happens when they, have a disagreement at T-ball practice? Do they quit and leave the team? No, you won't let them quit. But what have you done?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think you're getting right at the heart of it, that we have to get better. I have to get better at forgiving.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And letting things go. There's a great book called Unoffendable, and it's
Brant Hansen.
Yeah, it's so much better for us to let things go or address them if they're needing to be addressed. But a lot of times I'll build up something in my head that I've created conversations that never took place.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I do that too.
Take the ball and run with it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Whereas if I can just let that go, that doesn't really matter. Oh, I'm going to be so much happier. And then I can start this relationship in a much better place. So.
Yeah. Or really be able to advocate for your own needs too. To be able to say to somebody, you hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
You said this thing and it hurt my feelings. Or you did this thing and I felt like you didn't care about me. Or this thing happened and this is how I felt. Being able to express that to somebody is really difficult, but it is so important. And it is the baseline of having community. And having community is how we get out of this epidemic of loneliness.
And wouldn't you agree that not everything has to be addressed? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's all.
Yes.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you're exactly right. When something has to be addressed, deep breath and address it.
Yeah.
But then for me, there are certain things that I just have to go,
Yep,
that
that
is
doesn't
not
matter.
worth it.
Right.
And little something extra. When you have to address that, be willing to hear what they intended to say. Instead of, because you are, you're hearing through your own filters. And so what you're hearing may not always be what they were saying.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we want to go and say, oh, you hurt my feelings and you said this, but we're not willing to hear, well, what I meant by that was,
Yeah.
I love you and I want to care for you and all the things. So,
all the things.
Yeah.
I think we're unwilling to hear that other part of it, or at least I have been.
Yeah.
It's a struggle for sure.
Yeah,
Yep, for sure.
So how do we move forward? How do we take this loneliness epidemic and begin to take steps forward to connect with people in a real meaningful way?
Well, I think one thing that you said and you were talking about too is that identify what are the walls I'm putting up? What are the blockades that I'm putting up? Because I have to start with me first. So can't change anybody else, but I can identify when I've been putting up walls, when I've been scooting out of church before talking to anyone, when I've been avoiding what's really going on. Identifying those walls that we're putting up, I think is my
Absolutely.
first.
And making the commitment not to just keep shoving our emotions down. You know, because some of it you can go, oh, okay, I'm lonely. All right, I'm just gonna forget about that. But actually doing something about it,
because it will come out at some point.
Sure,
maybe your kids, or you'll kick the cat, or
Well, and it also is the baseline of the depression and the anxiety that leads to horrific things like the suicide culture that we have. This increased amount of suicide that we have right now. It's really unhealthy to not address your social isolation on the front end of it and just let it fester and just push it down. You've got to solve it.
And I will say this: be honest. When somebody asks you how you're doing, like we've all had those people, like we'll say, "How you doing?" "Well, I'm good." But then there are those people who really love and care about you, and when you're not honest with them, then that's a wall you're putting up. And so I would challenge you to be honest. If you're having a hard day, say so. I know that in this room we've kind of, it wasn't like a spoken rule, but unspoken, we've been saying, "Hey, I think we need to address this," or "Hey, I'm having a tough day today. I need some help on this," or "I think we need to talk about this." And that has deepened our relationship with one another, but it was not easy. And I, for one, have tried to commit myself to being more honest with other people who I know love and care about me. Y'all know my thing is, if I don't look in the eye, we're in trouble. Like when we gather around these microphones and I'm looking at everything but you guys know that's my signal. That's my thing.
Oh, yeah.
And so you're like, you're
that's
not
a signal for us to turn off the microphones.
That's
really
exactly
what
right.
it is.
And get you right before we turn the microphones back on.
Get our relationship right.
Right. And usually it's not something with us, it's something with me. Something that's bothering me, something that's going on with me. And you can see those things. I think all of us could say that at one time or another. You see something and you're like, that's not exactly right. You're kind of
something's off.
Right.
Yeah.
And we have to be committed to honesty in those relationships. So I would say that's an honest way that you can take a step forward towards somebody.
Right.
Too.
And be a safe place for that person to be honest with you. That really takes, that's an important step, because you want somebody to be able to share with you what really is on their heart. And so first you have to be that safe receiving place that can love and care for them when they're going through something.
And when you say be that safe place, what do you mean by that? Because I think we say that a lot, but we don't often define it. So define what you mean by safe place.
Yeah, that's great. One of the things is that you're not going to go and then gossip about somebody's issue that they're having. Yeah, Carol came to me and, she's doing this and that and this.
Or pray for Carol because of this.
Because, you just might want to remember her. I have this, actually it's a spoken rule. I do it at the beginning of our life group semester, because I do lead life group at my church. And I say, you won't see me mad very often, but if you want to see me mad, then you take something that's been shared in this room and you say it to somebody outside this room, because what happens in here stays in here. And if you want to see me mad, then you do that. And we've not had one instance where we've had to address that. Yeah. And I think it is due in part to, they really know I'm serious about that. I'm so committed to them and them having that safe space. That I'm willing to say, I will blister you if you do that and dishonor somebody's honesty and vulnerability inside that room. So, I love that you said that.
I think another way to make it a safe place is that you genuinely, authentically care about the other person talking to you. So you're not just looking past them to go see somebody else that, because you are looking for the next best thing instead of the person in front of you. But you turn your feet towards them. You look them in the eyeballs. You stop. You let the world that's spinning around you stop spinning.
Right.
And you actually give somebody the time and attention that they need in order to really, truly share with you what's going on in their hearts and mind, in their heart and mind.
Yeah.
Sometimes that takes prayer, because if you're in the middle of something and you don't have time to do that, but yet God's calling you to do it, just pray.
Yeah.
I've had to do that. God,
You had
I
to
know.
do it yesterday, I think, because I was sharing with you. I was like, I just verbally threw up on her. She did not ask for all of that.
No. That was not what I was thinking about. I was thinking about being caught in the hallway and someone struggling with something, and I've got to go. I've got XYZ.
Right.
And my first thought is get out of this. But my second thought is,
Turn your
God,
feet.
you've called me here.
Yeah.
Turn the feet and just pray and say, God, you know what I've got to do, and you know how much time I've got to do it. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to lean on you to get it done.
Yeah.
Yep. So those are two ways to be a safe place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep it to yourself.
Right.
And really, truly give somebody that eye contact and that be present with them while they're while they're sharing with
Be
you.
honest.
Yes.
And be open.
Yeah. Yep. And don't take fine or good for an answer.
Yeah.
Somebody
Y'all know.
says, I'm fine. Fine, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Fine, really, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm good.
Good.
Yeah.
I think we should eliminate
okay.
fine from the vocabulary.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is not an acceptable answer to how you doing.
Yeah.
No, fine is not a good answer.
Yeah. Today's a good day.
Today's a good day. Yeah.
Or today's
Sounds
a
more
hard day.
positive.
Yeah. Oh,
Today's
I said
a
that.
hard day.
Yeah. I've said
Yeah.
that on many occasions recently. Like, I don't know how this is going to go today.
Yeah.
Right.
and that's the beauty of relationship. That's the beauty of community. When we provide that safe space for one another, we're able to, when one of us is weak, somebody can help him up.
Yeah.
That's scriptural. I think it's in Ecclesiastes. When one falls down, there's somebody there to help him up. And really, that's what we want for you. We want you to build healthy community, a place where you can grow and thrive and put down roots and support your friends and be supported by people. And that only comes in relationships that are sometimes messy. So don't be afraid of that. We'd love to hear your thoughts and your comments, your advice about how to build relationships and cure this loneliness epidemic. We would love to hear from you. You can email us at girltalk@thelightfm.org. You can also get in touch on the Girlfriends of the Girl Talk Facebook page. You can also get in touch on the public Girl Talk Facebook page. However you choose, we do a little happy dance whenever we hear from you. And so get in touch however you want to. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast so you don't have to miss any of the episodes. They'll come straight to your phone whenever they're available. And we'll see you next time we gather around these microphones for the next Girl Talk podcast.